Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Blood and Pigment podcast. My name is Garrett Swader, and this is episode number 5. I'm joined this evening with Dan,
Yo.
Joseph,
Hello.
and Fernando.
Hello, everyone.
The overview of this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about the new points changes. Not everything was points changes. For the sailors, it's a options change for them, but it's the new No Peace Beyond the Line errata reprint, whatever you want to call it.
Revised edition.
Thank you. But yeah, we're going to talk about that in depth. I know we've got a lot of people on here that are very excited about some of the changes and what they mean for the game going forward. But first, as always, I'm going to go around the table and see what everybody's been up to as far as hobby-wise. So we'll start with Dan. What's up in your world?
So as of right now, I don't have any ongoing projects related to Blood and Plunder as far as hobby goes. I finished painting everything, so I've just kind of been reading and writing. I'm sure most people know I've been working on a Great Northern War naval PDF. I've been finalizing and getting that sent over, and then I'm just trying to acquire more minis so I can paint reference photos.
Didn't you just finish a ship project?
Oh yeah, my Polacra. Sorry, it slipped my mind because it's finished. I finished my Polacra. I took the light frigate hull and did a different sail layout on it, and it's going to be in the painting contest. So check it out.
You finished it, and it just left your consciousness.
Yeah, it was all right. That's done. Throw it behind me. What's next?
How many factions you got in that Great Northern War C PDF you're working on?
I think there's only 4. I have the Swedes, obviously, the Russians, the Danish-Norwegian Navy, and then Cossack River Raiders.
Sounds spicy.
So those are the nationalities, and then each one has a navy, and then I think the Swedes and the Russians both had navy, and then privateers, and some new characters. Hopefully some new, I talk with Mike as to what was needed, and I'm sure as soon as Port Royal is ironed out, we'll continue to go from there. But it's in kind of the writing's done, sent it out, it's been play tested to hell, so I'm confident that everything is good. So it's just kind of in the queue to be determined.
The blood and queue.
If I can, I would love it for it to be finished before next year's Adepticon, so I can bring Russian privateers to the sea tournament, but we will see.
I've been seeing pictures of a certain ship that you've been working on, Joseph. What have you been working on? It seems like a big fat something.
Yeah, I've been working on painting up a new flute. Forget how big a project these big ships are. Like that Barco Luengo, that pretty easy project. You can finish it up in a couple of nights, 3 nights working on it. But these bigger ships, they take a lot of time. So yeah, I'm painting up a flute like the Batavia. It was a Dutch large flute, big galleon kind of ship, 1620s. There's a pretty remarkable story about it. I think I've talked about it before. Anyway, they made a replica of it, and it's painted kind of spicy with like a weird teal color, red and black and yellow. So I painted it up kind of like that and modified the rigging just a little bit, brought down the bowsprit a little straighter.
Where is that replica located? Is it in Europe somewhere? I'm sure.
Yeah, I think it's just in the Netherlands. That's a pretty big ship, a lot bigger than the flute is in Blood and Plunder, but I figured it was the best represented without buying another galleon, which I don't really want to do. Turns out I have a 3rd flute sitting on my shelf, though, so I don't know if I want to paint 3 flutes. So if anybody else needs a flute, I have extra ones.
I think Jason needs it. He's the Dutch guy. I think he needs one.
He should have a flute.
It's required.
Yeah, I haven't got a lot of painting in this year, so it's fun to have a big project. Almost done with it. I just have a couple more painting touch-ups to do, and I got this mast all glued and painted. Just need to put them in, and then next night do all the rigging and sailing. I got some of Guy's fancy sails, Simon's quality sails to put on it, so should be a fun project when it's all done.
Ooh.
Very nice.
Some stuff I've been up to. I've been working on Adepticon, post-Adepticon blog stuff. Got quite a few articles out for... I didn't write them all, but I got them all formatted and pictured up and put out. Got some of the... If you haven't looked already, I recommend you check out the blog and see some of the articles on the various force lists used in the tournament. Fernando did a really great one on the Spanish army, which people really enjoyed. But I'll talk about that in a minute. tournament reports and stuff like that. Been going through the Granada campaign that we're play testing for a upcoming release with my local group, and that's been kind of fun. We're up to scenario 5 of 6. Got 2 or 3 groups kind of going through it simultaneously. So every night we have everybody play the same scenario and see how it turns out.
How are the English faring? Are they getting obliterated?
You're pretty good, actually. There's 2 forces that one force that somebody he just built with 200 points however he wanted, which has more units that are smaller. And he's doing really well. He can be a pretty good player. And then one force that used the unit suggestions, and he hasn't played as long, but he's taken a couple hard punchings. But at the end of every scenario, you see if your guys come back to life, basically, if they were just wounded and come back for the next scenario or not. So that can be kind of swingy. If you save 3/4 of your guys that died, that's kind of nice. But if they all die, it hurts pretty bad. But it's been fun to see. I think it's going to be fun. But half the time I don't get to play because we have an odd number. We have like 7 people coming pretty regularly. So I just get to organize and answer questions, which is not as fun. That's okay. I appreciate everybody playing these scenarios. I've been playing Merchants and Marauders, not a Blood and Plunder game, but it's kind of the pirate board game, the definitive pirate board game. I think it's like 12 years old. I bought it when it came out, maybe 2000, I don't know, 11 or 12, 13. But it's kind of what they call a sandbox board game where you can just do whatever you want. It's set in the Caribbean, Golden Age, kind of loosely historical, but it's pretty accurate. But not all the names are real and stuff. But you can do whatever you want. You can be a merchant. You can be a pirate. You can go try to kill each other.
How do you win?
You just have to get 10 points, but you can get points in various ways. You get a point every time you do a big delivery of in-demand goods. Every port in the Caribbean has a recycling good that's in demand. You can get a point by killing another player. You can get a point by accomplishing missions. There's missions out on the board all the time. You can pick them up. They might be something like go find this or go find spices for the French count in Spacetera because he loves spicy food. So go here and find some spices and bring them back. Or it could be go kill a pirate or take down a naval ship. There's NPCs, 2 pirate ships that chug around the board, and up to 4 European Navy ships, French, English, Dutch, and Spanish. And each port has a nationality. So, and every nationality you offend, if you take a Spanish ship, then you have a Spanish bounty, and you can't go into any Spanish port anymore. So the more you pirate, the more limited your options are. But every port also has a special ability. Like Port Royal, you can always go in there as long as you pass an influence check. Each captain, you get a captain at the beginning of the game, has like 4 stats. Seamanship and scouting and influence and leadership. Good for various things. You can also get a point through proving a rumor true. There's a whole deck of rumor cards. You can pick up rumors in port, and then they usually involve going to a location and doing some sort of check or accomplishing something to see if it's true. So there's a bunch of different things you can do. You can kind of go a bunch of different ways. It's a great game. And then I pick up the expansion for it, which makes it even better. It has a module kind of expansion. It has like up to 12 different things you can add to the game, 1 or more of them, which makes it more realistic. It has contraband stuff. You can pick up this more valuable goods. It has different special things you can put on each port, like you can have a mission on the island, or you can have a special trading port, or you have weather. You have a storm that just goes around the board and wrecks you if it catches you, and it not horribly but damages you. And it also has a wind effect where you can go faster if you go with the wind and go slower if you go against the wind. Anyway, if you like board games, this is a really good one. Combat is a little finicky, but once you get it, there's kind of 3 things you can do. You can shoot each other, you can try to board, or you can try to run away and quit the combat. Which at first time going through is kind of weird, but it's pretty genius actually for being pretty abstract. I played a lot of pirate games. I've been putting some reviews up on Blood and Pikmin of different pirate games, but this one is kind of the definitive one. Is if you just like doing piratey things in the Caribbean. The ships are pretty good miniatures. It's a beautiful game, great art. I'll put a review of it up pretty soon here. Me and my wife have been playing it. We played it like 5 times in a row now. We played it several times over the years, but we just got it out on our gaming table, left it there, and play half a game, come back next night and finish it up. I think it's out of print right now, so that stinks. But if you can find a copy, Merchants and Marauders is the pirate board game to get.
Yeah, I saw you playing that, and I went looking for it, and I could not find it anywhere. So it does sound interesting, though. You'll have to bring it with you next Adepticon, and we'll play it.
I don't know if I could take a break from Plunder to play that. Maybe. I'll bring it to Gen Con. How about that?
There you go.
And finally, I'm going to subject you to a nice boring segment, Historical Books with Joe. I've been doing some reading, as always, and just finished The Raiders and Natives, Cross-Cultural Relations in the Age of Buccaneers by Arn Białuski. Must be Polish. I don't know how to say that name. I mentioned this before. Finished it up. It was quite good. Some nice little vignettes. It's not very comprehensive because a lot of that information really wasn't preserved formally, but there was a couple unique. There's a character that I think is going to make it into a Blood and Plunder book, a native guy that kind of worked for the Buccaneers for a while. Then he went back to Tortuga and worked with the French and the English for quite a few years as a guide, and that's kind of fun. General thing I got out of the book is the natives worked. This is especially in the Spanish Main or the Central America. Natives worked with the Buccaneers quite a bit closely and were eager to work with them because they had a lot of trade goods and treated them a little better than the Spanish initially. But then as the age of buccaneering waned, the Indians figured out that the Buccaneers come through every 5 to 10 years and it's great. But then if we help them, the Spanish come and make life miserable for us and kill us. So they stopped helping the Buccaneers and started helping the Spanish a lot more because that was better for them.
We have to live with these guys.
Yeah, we have to live with these guys. They can make our life miserable all the time. So that was interesting. And they were just not as helpful and more hostile overall towards the Buccaneers by the 1680s, 90s. So that was a good book. And I just finished Pillaging the Empire, which was a recommendation from you, Fernando, right?
Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
Global Piracy in the High Seas, 1500 to 1750 by Chris Lane. This is a good overview. Seems really well written. Felt kind of academic to me. The pages have a lot on them.
Yeah.
But it's a good outline of kind of the larger picture. Starts in that 16th century, touches on stuff outside of the scope that we like to work within. It has pirates, merchants, and conquistadors in the Indian Ocean and China Seas. That whole chapter was new information for me. But it was kind of easy to see the progression of this whole system where we had the Dutch or the English started out kind of as the raiders of the Spanish Empire, the Elizabethans, Drake, Elizabethan piracy, and they were moderately successful. And then you had the Dutch sea rovers. They kind of took over as far as the main aggressors trying to grab Spanish treasure, Piet Hein being the most successful of them. And then you had a bunch of French after that. And then you finally get into the English by the 1670s or so. And there was a lot about the South Sea, which is the Pacific. Seems like a couple of guys were successful over in the Pacific, and that inspired all these expeditions to keep going over there. It took so long to get there, so dangerous, that only about half of them did any good. But it was such a long trip to get all the way over there and back again. And then the last chapter is on the last Buccaneers and the scumbag pirates of the 18th century. Using Henry and Avery and Captain Kidd as kind of the most successful, where Captain Kidd wasn't very successful. Examples, the treasure wrecks, Anglo-American freebooters. That's what he calls the kind of the 18th century pirates that we all know better.
Thanks, Charles Johnson.
Yeah, Charles Johnson. He doesn't mention that very much. It's a big picture book, but I thought it was pretty helpful. I think there's Blood and Plunder could explore a lot more with the Dutch sea rovers of kind of the early to mid 17th century. A lot of opportunity there. And the South Sea. Blood and Plunder really hasn't moved to the Pacific. It's a lot of the same kind of stuff. Buccaneers, French and English, but we haven't really done anything over there as far as Blood and Plunder goes. You have anything to add on that, Fernando? You read it?
No, I read it like a long time ago, but I really like it because it gives you the big picture rather than focus on the details, which is, I mean, I use it for my own research in terms of the navigational system of the Spanish Empire. Because at the end of the day, for the most part, pirates weren't really just kind of a minor concern to the empires. Because yeah, there were some high robberies, but at the end of the day, really the threat to the Spanish Empire is the British or the Dutch Empire. It's not a band of pirates.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I like it because it provides kind of big pictures. So yeah, you know more about it now than me because I read it a couple of years ago. I read the first edition actually. Now I have the second, but I have not read the second.
I get the second edition, so I am up on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last conclusion chapter here, the kind of ending final paragraph. Pirate attacks and pirate threats notwithstanding, Spain continued to build this colonial empire, part export enclave, part articulated regional economy. That sounds educated language. And overall scheme of things, pirate raids were not as significant as some historians have believed. For example, defense costs, when weighed against the overall volume of Spanish trade in the early modern period, were not outrageous.
Yeah.
Yet, pirates were a significant nuisance.
Yeah. That's my research actually. So most of the way in which the Spanish did trade is basically very medieval. It's through convoys. It's just like medieval times. There are like these champagne fairs in France, where basically because roads were also dangerous, you could be robbed. So the natural strategy to follow is just to have many people armed and basically travel the road at the same time with heavy armed people. So the Spanish had that same system through the Atlantic and the Pacific. So sometimes because of storms or you were unlucky, you got caught in the but by pirates or by privateers. But in generally, most of the treasure actually went without problems from Americas to Spain.
So his point was kind of, it was annoying and it cost the Spanish quite a bit of money to defend against it. But overall, it wasn't the thing that brought Spain down. They had other problems, but this kind of contributed to their problems.
Yeah.
I'll take that. A win is a win.
All right, and next time you get to look forward to Lords of All the World, Ideologies of Empire in Spain, Britain, and France. That's what I'm reading now.
That sounds interesting. That's something that I would like to read.
I'm 29 pages in, and it's just talked about the Roman idea of empire and Machiavelli, so it's pretty heavy duty. All right, I'll stop. I'm done. Thank you for your patience.
It is. I mean, all that is very interesting. I'm still trying to get through my book on the Western design and the Cromwell expedition over to capture Hispaniola, and they wind up capturing Jamaica.
Yeah, I think there's some fun opportunities for Blood Plunder there too. It's fun.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. I'm also I'm listening to, it's an audiobook, Conquistadors by Fernando Cervantes. It's super interesting, and he goes in depth into pretty much in order all of the conquests that happen, starting at Hispaniola basically, and then ending in the Incan Empire. So that's super interesting.
New history of Spanish discovery and conquest.
Yes, I believe so.
I just can buy it in Audible, but my wife used all my credits, so I guess I can't.
There's an interesting story with that one because piracy was a thing ever since there was a boat on the water. A French pirate captured a shipment of Aztec gold and trinkets that they were sending back to Spain. And they also had a bunch of jaguars in cages on that ship.
No.
And it killed a few people when the French found them, and they had to throw, unfortunately, I think he said they had to throw the cages, the jaguars in cages overboard, just because they were like, we can't handle this.
Damn.
Well, speaking of something like that, I forget what book I was reading here. But there was a French nobleman who asked for 5 monkeys, but he made a mistake and put 500 monkeys on his instructions for his guy, and the guy brought back 500 monkeys on a ship, and the nobleman wasn't very happy. But the guy had the receipts. He had proved it. It says right here. So he gave a lot of monkeys to his friends.
I bet.
I just finished HMS Surprise by Patrick O'Brien. I'm working through the Marturis Command. About 2 chapters in. I'm still in love with this series. I love it. It's a little bit out of period for us, but Patrick O'Brien is just amazing at writing when it comes to nautical speak.
But moving along, Fernando, do you have any projects that you've been working on?
No, actually, I haven't been even at my home. So I went to Adepticon, then I stayed in my home for a couple of days, and then I traveled because of work reasons to England. So I haven't done any hobby nor played. But given that I was in England, I actually attended Salute. So I went to the Adepticon of England, which is interesting, and I found nice to contrast the way in which wargaming occurs there. It's a lot of. I think it's a more mature market. What I like about it is that you see a larger audience in terms of diversity. You see a lot of children, for example. You see more women, and there are no tournaments, and it's only one day. But it's more like family oriented rather than you would say competitive tournaments. You also see a lot of indies, which is also quite interesting. So a lot of English people have their own games about whatever thing that they want to create, and there are a lot of historicals also. So unlike Adepticon, where basically there are not many, or basically not counting Blood and Plunder, but the historicals were in the other hotel, right? But here they are kind of the same place, and they have even more people playing compared to the typical games. So it was quite nice to attend that. And given that I was in England, now that we were talking about historical stuff, I also went to visit kind of the Maritime Royal Museum in London, and other in the Imperial War Museum, I think it's called, which was interesting. I was expecting a little bit more, perhaps, in terms of what I saw in the museum and the Maritime Museum. It was nice. I think I was expecting more of England in terms of the Museum of the Sea, but it was nice nonetheless. They are pretty proud of the tradition. They don't mention the pillaging of the Spanish Empire. Well, they mention the victories, but they don't mention the pillaging. They do mention quite a lot. They apologize about slavery, but not about pillaging other European empires. Well, what's interesting is that I also, before Nelson at Trafalgar, I think the one most important Navy officer in England was this guy called Vernon, and he captured Panama, Portobello, in the early 18th century. So more or less in the period that we are starting in Blood and Plunder.
He was big in War of Jenkins' Ear.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I can't remember what the European equivalent. I think Austrian secession, War of Austrian secession.
Yeah, it's more or less a little bit later, but yeah, he was big on that time. That's where he captured Panama, and they mentioned that. I mean, he gained quite a lot of fame because of that.
Yep.
But what they don't mention is that he failed to conquer Cartagena, and in fact, I think it's one of the biggest losses of the British that they have ever had. I think it's only comparable to when the British lost in Singapore against the Japanese later on in World War II. But they had kind of almost 2,000 ships, and they lost against almost no three Spanish ships in Colombia, and so that was the big hit. But they don't mention that. They just mentioned that he captured Portobello.
Yeah.
And actually went to there is this famous street in London that's called Portobello Road. That
I think I've heard of that before.
Yeah, it became famous later because it was one of the first kind of open markets in Europe since the late 19th century, I think. Nowadays, it's kind of a hipster antiquities um, stores, but nothing
Is
that special. But historically, it's interesting.
this is George Bing? Is that who you're talking about?
Vernon, I think, right?
Vernon,
Vernon?
Yeah.
Vernon with a V,
Vernon.
I believe.
with a B. Yeah.
He was he in Cartagena, I think, because I've listened to a book on War of Jenkins' Ear, and in Cartagena, he was a big proponent of like when you're taking these Spanish towns, you got to do it quickly because you have a lot of people and they get sick in the tropics, and the longer you wait
Yeah.
and do a siege and draw this out, the sicker you're going to get and the harder it's going to be, and that was basically what happened to them most of the time when they didn't take the cities, is the Spanish would be able to hold out and keep them from taking the cities, and eventually it would just be an attrition thing with the English would just get disease and die from that more than actual combat.
Yeah, that is correct. So there's kind of a misconception that battles, the most of the casualties in all battles, I would say, are due to the war, but no, it's because of the disease, generally speaking. That's also why Africa really was not colonized until later in the 19th century, because before that it was impossible. I mean,
just
if you
die.
try to, it
Yeah.
was not. There's a lot of jungles there.
Small piece of trivia: Mount Vernon, George Washington's estate, is named after this guy because his George Washington's brother,
I didn't know
Lawrence
that.
Washington, served on Vernon's flagship, the Princess Caroline, as a
Mhm.
captain of Royal Marines.
Let me look up this book that I listened to because it mentioned that as well. There were a lot of American from what is modern day U.S. troops that went on those expeditions, and that being one of them.
Interesting. I didn't know that. But yeah. So there's I mean, in Spain, in the Spanish-speaking world, the guy that beat the Vernon in Cartagena is kind of the most famous naval guy. I think he's one of the most famous Spanish naval guys, just below some guy from the 16th century.
Is he the one that's missing
Yeah,
like
yeah.
an eye and an arm and
And a leg. Yeah, yeah.
he's got a lot of battle scars. He's a cool dude. Yeah.
Yeah. He hated the English.
The book that I was listening to was The War of Jenkins' Ear by Robert Gaudi, Gaudi.
I have that on my
You have that?
nightstand, ready to read. I haven't read it yet, but yeah.
Yeah, it was good.
Okay.
It was interesting.
So yeah, the who is Jenkins is a guy, technically a merchant that accused the Spanish of taking his ear.
Yeah.
Dramatic reveal of the ear in Parliament. Yeah.
Yeah, and he went to the English Parliament and said that that was unlawful, and the British wanted an excuse to make war with Spain, so that was the excuse. But there is an interesting anecdote I think it was almost 10 years ago or more, in Colombia. The now King of England, I forgot his name, the Charles, I think it's name.
Charles.
Yeah, went to Cartagena with the municipality of Cartagena in Colombia, and they actually, weirdly enough, in order to show friendship between Colombia and England, they had this statue made of the English guy in Cartagena, and they had it there, but it only lasted for a night, I think, because it was torn down by the population of Cartagena.
That seems a little tone deaf.
Yeah, it sounds like what? Okay, this was a long time ago, but still, you are kind of making a hero out of this guy that wanted to conquer. Yeah, so it sounds weird, but it's interesting. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I did. Not really anything hobby oriented, honestly. I'm painting something right now, but scenery for Blood and Crowns. But that's it. That's the first thing that I'm doing hobby in several weeks.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. I'm over here in Pollen Land. I've been the last couple of days fighting allergies, but I've not really been doing much either. I've got my galleon almost done that I need to get back on it, and I'm planning on one of my big interests in the time period is the 1702 St. Augustine siege, and we've got some scenarios for that I would like to play test here and get a campaign started of that with some guys that I play with. So, but yeah, I've been struggling to get down and actually work on stuff, but that's fine. I figured I would be burnt out a little bit after Adepticon.
Yeah, you always need a recovery.
Yeah. But as much as we love history around here, this is a Blood and Plunder podcast. So, segue into the new Piece Beyond the Line, second printing of No Piece Beyond the Line. We're going to go through into the weeds a little bit on all the changes that happened in that book. And what we're going to start with is the sailors and the new options they have. And I'm going to throw it over to Dan to talk about what we've got with those.
So all the sailors, so that is the Marineros, the Marins, Sea Dogs, Zeelighten, and European sailors. So not the pirates or any of the new elite sailors from Raise the Black. These are strictly the national sailors from No Peace. They all got the option to either exchange their pistols for lances for free, and they can exchange their pistols for bracelet pistols for 4 points per unit. I think it adds some diversity to their equipment. I think it makes them a little more flexible depending on what you're trying to run. As we were talking about before we started recording, I really like this option for the Marineros when you're playing Better in the Coast, because you can drop them to 3 points, be inexperienced, and then give them lances. And they make a really good melee unit. If you're charging on fatigue with Ruthless, you're hitting on threes. Yeah, because they go 5, 4, 3. You're hitting on threes with lances. And I find them to be a little more offensive, because they basically cancel out your opponent's cover for being in hard cover. It's a +1 to their save when you charge. And I find them to be very nasty when they close.
Can you use Brethren of the Coast on land?
You can, yeah.
So it's also cheap lancers also.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it would still just be 4. Where are you getting the extra -1 on that?
Because if you do Ruthless and then
Ruthless is the -1.
You're right. I'm done.
Okay.
I was thinking.
That's
Sorry.
okay. I was just like,
I'm
where's
not
that
known
extra
for
-1?
my mathematical knowledge.
I'm sure the lances are really good on Marines as well, because they get the hard chargers.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I hate Marines because I don't play French. Yeah, they're nice. Now people can use their Lancer models out of their plastic steps, right?
Yeah. All those hands with lances I just been putting in my bits box are going to see some use eventually now.
Well, if you played Spanish, you'd already have them.
I like having good guns that aren't crappy.
But you're talking about playing lances.
Mm-hmm. But I also want to make sure that my gun units don't have poorly equipped.
We've got good gun units.
No, you don't.
Yeah, we do. Anyway, talking about good guns, we also have, like you said, Brace of Pistols upgrade for 4 points per unit, not per model. And so that is big on any of your sailors that you have a large sea game that you would be able to put like 12 guys in a unit. Just paying that 4 points for Brace of Pistols on everybody seems pretty good.
Yeah. The larger the scale the game, the better proposition it becomes.
Definitely. Thinking about it, there's some give and take between Brace of Pistols and Pikes, but I think both of them have a place in the game, and both of them can be good. Brace of Pistols definitely should cost more, and it's definitely a advantage over lances, but usually you pay a little bit less per model for the lances, so it balances out pretty well.
I really like this update because it lets you look at your sailors, and by sailors we mean the 4-point models, like what do we got? We got Marineros, Sea Dogs, Marines, Zeelighten, and the European sailors. They all get this option. I think it just puts a new spin on them. Most people use them for artillery crew and maybe 1 unit free to sail and repair and stuff. But if they aren't your primary offensive unit, with maybe exception of French, because those Marines are so aggressive. But this opens up some more options to make them kind of your primary attack unit as well. A little more 3-dimensional unit. You can do more things with it. So I think that Brace of Pistols is a little scary. I don't like Brace of Pistols. Really strong. Reroll all those misses on charges. Maybe I'm just sore about it because I played Spanish too much, and they don't have any option for that at all until the 18th century. But yeah, whenever filibusters hit me in the face, like, I don't like you at all. But yeah, it's exciting. Some new opportunities for these old units.
Yeah, speaking from a rules perspective, I'm not sure if muskets are equal to Brace of Pistols because they cost the same. But, if we play the bejesus out of it and we discover that it has issues, it'll be like it was at the DEFCON tournament. Someone will show up to a tournament with, oops, all Brace of Pistols, make it to first place and go, hey, I brought this to demonstrate the point. But I like it. I mainly use the brace pistols for my command unit.
The thing with laser pistols is it's either really good if you get them into melee, or it does nothing because you're over 6 inches away the whole game and you're hitting on 10s with a ranged weapon that's trash. So you definitely have to fight for it and make it work.
You get an extra 4 inches if you're European sailors, though, because you got a 6 shoot instead of a 7.
Whoopee.
That's something, but
It makes Zeleiden even scarier, and I mainly run Zeleiden. I run Zeleiden and Marins more than likely. This update has made me really consider the Marineros for Spanish Lancemen, which I really, really enjoy, and I've never had a use for them. So now I may have to get some sailors and get some Marineros with some lances made.
there you go. I made a bunch of plastic Lanceros, so I've got enough to do pikes if I want to. Plus, I was a fan of the Marineros Piqueros before, so
Yeah, that's really what we should compare them to. The Marineros Piqueros, they're 4 points. They have lances. They don't really have any upgrade options. Maybe a couple.
they got that sweet 6 save.
And that's their claim to fame, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the issue is that only is, if I remember correctly, because I haven't played these factions in a long time, but I think only the Spanish Armada.
They're only in Armada de Barlovento. I think.
Armada Barlovento, yeah. They are not in the Corsarios.
No, if they are, they're a support unit. I know they're a support unit in the Ostend Privateers, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, they are.
That's their limiting factor is you gotta go searching for them. You don't get them everywhere. But when you do have them, I think they're slightly better just for that 6 save than taking the Marineros with lances.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I totally agree.
So another huge change that we can talk about is all cavalry units that were originally released in No Peace Beyond the Line went down a point. Break out your boxes of horses. I've heard a lot of people talking about cav units and testing them out. So, and I think they're going to start being a staple of land lists. We'll see how this affects the meta, but nobody was really taking them before, so I can't really argue with putting them down a point. So
Yeah, they were just too expensive before for a unit that's usually got an 8 shoot save.
right.
You know, the real reason behind this change is Firelock Games has too many boxes of these cavalry in their warehouse, and they just need to sell them.
Well,
that's fine. I gotta grab another box anyway.
I bought another box, so
It's working.
So I already had painted quite a lot. So I may need another box, but I already have a lot.
Yeah, you got some beautiful cavalry.
I have both the pistol cavalry in metal, which is very heavy, and the plastic one. Yeah.
I wish they would re-release the guy on the horse that's rearing.
Yeah, that guy's cool.
Yeah, I would really like that.
I wish I had him.
Hey, Mike, if you're listening, we want the mounted cavalry commander in resin, please.
Please, pretty please.
Yeah, the cavalry hasn't got into resin yet because they have those plastics.
Right. Might be pretty far down on the radar for things that they're doing.
Kind of 3 levels of cavalry. There's a Spanish cavalry, which is trained, and you can bring it all up to veteran. And they're the kind of spiciest and most fun. You can give them different equipment. They have quick and skirmishers and ruthless. And then there's a cavalry, the Lanceros Caballeros, that are really interesting too. So they went from 6 points down to 5. It's still pretty expensive, but definitely more reasonable. 6 points is hard to pay for a kind of a one-trick pony.
Yeah.
But 5 points still kind of expensive. Everybody else, the Dutch, French, and English had a 5-point inexperienced model with brace of pistols. And each one has a little bit of a flavor difference. But now they're down to 4. 4 for a unit model is very reasonable, especially they're basically the militia model on a horse with quick, a lot more mobile.
Yeah, it makes sense point-wise, too, because it usually costs a point in the old system to put a commander on a horse. So you basically took a militia and threw him on a horse for 1 point, which checks out.
They also have a brace of pistols, so that's another point. So the 5 kind of made sense, but they just weren't getting used. They were too fragile. They blew up, and it was kind of expensive model and hobby-wise to buy that many models just to figure out that they were not very good.
Mm-hmm.
And there's kind of another level of cavalry. There's a 6-point, the 5-point, and then there's this 4-point model, the European militia cavalry is kind of the generic one that's used by only, I think, the Scottish and the Scottish militia and all the Portuguese faction, Portuguese, Brazilian tercios and militia, whatever it's called.
Portuguese get them for core, I know, and I don't know if anybody else does.
They don't. Scottish have them as support, but Portuguese get them for core.
Overpowered Portuguese.
Yeah.
But they got a price reduction too, and I was in conversations about this with Mike, and I pleaded not to reduce these. But now there's cavalry for 3 points a model, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, if you like Portuguese, or if you like cavalry, you should play Portuguese because you can just make an insane swarm of drilled Portuguese horsemen if you want.
I may start playing Portuguese.
Yeah, I think there's always been kind of some shenanigans for Portuguese, but this kind of multiplies those opportunities.
That's your job next year, Fernando. Bring an all cavalry list to the land tournament.
Yeah,
As many as you can put on the table.
I mean, I think I can do it now if you don't update the size of the game.
Oh yeah, you have 50 models. Huh?
Yeah, if you go ahead, then I will need more.
Well, Firelock needs to sell those.
They got a couple of those cavalry boxes left.
So I don't want to go much astray, but this made me remember you previously said about my article about the Spanish army, and I know that a lot of people commented in the Facebook post. I didn't comment. I'm sorry, I was kind of busy. But some people thought that it was too competitive. That I was really like a super competitive player, and I don't think I am really, in the sense that my big constraint is that I only play Spanish. So yeah, I try to be good with what the Spanish have. But if I really wanted to kind of hack the game, I will start perhaps playing with the Portuguese or the natives or something like that. So I think really I like the Spanish army, and this is kind of going a lot of stray, but because it's really, I think all the factions in Blood and Plunder are quite fluffy and thematic. So there's not a trade-off between being good, being a good faction, and having a thematic list, because I think all of them are thematic in a sense. I don't know if you agree.
I hope so. That's the
I
goal.
I think they are, and I mean, I think being competitive in a tournament setting is warranted.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what that has to do with it, but I mean, whatever. Yeah, that's an odd comment to make about a tournament list.
I think they were just impressed you had analyzed it that much and knew what you were doing, where a lot of people just throw pirates on the table and have a good time, and that's good.
Yeah.
That's a good way to play. But you crunched the numbers, you understood what you were doing, and you're an analytical person, and you crushed with it. It was awesome.
They're just jealous because their army factions can't bring that extra support unit, so you get to give 2 units of grenadieros and then stab them with plug bayonets.
No, yeah, I think that's one good aspect of the Spanish army faction. But yeah, we're not talking about that, so let's go back to cavalry.
Yeah.
I will try. I don't know. I need to look into before trying to do the Spanish army. The really faction that I wanted to do, and I actually tried this at Historicon last year, was it was the Far-Flung Outpost, and I tried to make the Lanceros. That's why I painted the cavalry, the plastic cavalry, and it didn't work out because I don't know. But perhaps with more cavalry now, I think I can make it happen.
So the Far-Flung Outpost is a force option for the reformed Spanish militia from Raise the Black. And in it, they get tough, but they also have trouble reloading because they have crap equipment, even crappier than normal for Spanish. So were you trying to get around that by trying to eliminate most gunpowder weapons?
Yeah. So as you can see, what I like to do is really not shoot. So just shoot once and then charge. And it's a good faction to do that because basically you cannot shoot more than once because the probabilities of reloading with poorly equipped and these other aspect of it, it's very low. So, but they get tough, and tough is really good.
Yeah.
Tough is really good.
Tough with ruthless is really good combo too, because you get to get that ruthless bonus that much easier without having to bother with rallying.
Yeah.
It's on my list of things to try. After you said that, I was like, yeah, that would be, because you were talking about taking a swarm of Milicianos.
Yeah, Milicianos.
They have a decent fight number and fight save, so it's like okay, I've got a loaded musket that I'm going to shoot at some point, and then I'm coming in at you. I don't have to reload the sword.
Yeah. So the other option for the cavalry list back then, when I was studying, is the Spanish mission garrison with the crappy Milicianos Indios.
Mhm.
But they're too crappy. and
They're good at not dying. That's like their only plus.
Yeah, but they are not good for actually charging.
No, they're not.
So no, I tried once and it didn't work. So that's why I still think that Far Flung Outpost is the best 18th century list for a cavalry as a Spaniard. And I'm sorry, I really haven't looked much besides Spain. So most of what I know about Blood and Plunder is just Spain. So
Yeah.
I really learned about hearing, for example, Dan about the Brethren of the Coast, because it's like weird. I've never even thought about the Marineros and Lances in those kind of factions.
Well, and Dan was saying, this was before we started recording, I think, you take those down to inexperience, so you have a 3-point guy inexperienced with lances, which that seems good.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, it's better than in Spain, like in any Spanish faction.
Yeah.
And then I like to throw the Sun and Neptune in with them. So now they're inexperienced, but now they have tough and expert sailors. They can do all of my sailing stuff. And then if I need them to charge the pokey sticks, they can charge the pokey sticks and they're tough.
Seems fantastic. So keeping the ball rolling here, because I think we've, unless somebody wants to make another point about Cav, I'll let you do that if you want to.
I'm ready to talk about the Jewish militia. It's my favorite thing that they've taken the points off of, because I use Jewish militia a lot and I love them, and I'm so glad they're 4 points.
Yeah. So another weird, like I've never heard anybody talk about Jewish militia much, because they've always, since I've been playing the game, they've always been considered overpriced for what they are. And so, yeah, this was a unit that I was like, awesome. I'm glad they went down a point, because now people may start using them. And it's an interesting unit. But if you want to go into what you like about them, Dan, because it seems like you've probably played them more than anybody else.
Yeah, so they're mainly a Dutch unit. They come in with basically most of the Dutch militia here. And I really like them because they are essentially tough militia. They come trained at 4 points. They have muskets. They got a 6-6 fight, 7-7 shoot, 5 resolve, which is big. So they got drilled and tough. You can swap out drilled for elusive. So they're kind of a super flexible militia alternative. I always make my militia trained. I don't like having a lot of inexperienced units on the board because it's hard to get them reloaded and shooting. And Jewish militia kind of fill that trained militia role, but they're tough. They're tough and they're resolve 5, which is big, because I think the only other militia that's resolve 5 is the British/English. Yeah. So you get to play in that ball court, and they're tough, which is great.
Note, this is also
a
Portuguese unit as well.
Portuguese just get boosts all over the place.
Yeah.
They also have a 7 shoot save, which is better than the average bear for militia.
Mm-hmm. And if you swap that drilled for elusive.
Yeah, they still have a 7 shoot, which is kind of, that puts them in the militia class. But yeah, at 4 points, they're a good deal. At 5 points, they were not good enough to be bought.
Yeah, and the stat line pretty much tells you that you want to do the Fernando strategy with them. You want to run up, shoot once, and then go bonk. With that 6-6 fight, that's good.
That's a good standard fight.
They're just as good as regulars at fighting, which I think is silly. But yeah, dropping it down to 4 points is an awesome move, and it really helped me because I'm looking at probably building a Dutch land list for DEFCON next year, and I'll be bringing the Jewish militia because when I'm on land, I primarily play Dutch.
So do you think that this change may help the Dutch faction to get more tracked on land?
It already should be more attractive, but
The Dutch have boss loppers, and they have the new British Compagnie guys, whatever. They got some good units, but nobody
Yeah.
played Dutch at Adepticon at all this year. It's disappointing.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Everybody likes the pirates and their English and their Spanish. Those are the iconic.
Come to the orange side. We have clogs.
About them legendary commanders.
Legendary commanders, all of the commanders except for one on this list of points changes did go down in points. Joseph, if you want to go run through the list, and then we can make comments after about what we think. But there was a lot of legendary commanders that went down in points.
You don't think all the legendaries got a couple points shaved off? Pardal, the Spanish first guy, legendary, went from 32 to 28 points. That's a pretty good deal for 3 command points and very inspiring. Juan Corso went from 35 to 32. William Kidd went from 32 to 28, which is good. Henry Morgan got the most shaved off from 42 to 32 points. 32 points for Henry Morgan now. Léoline, the French original legendary guy, went from 37 to 32. Lawrence de Graaf went from 42 to 34. Piet Hein went from 40 to 36. He's now the most expensive commander. And King Goldencap went from 34 to 30 points. And then there was 3 historical commanders that also got an adjustment. Thomas Hewitson went from 25 to 20, just a kind of run-of-the-mill English guy. That was too expensive. Johan Erasmus Reining, a Dutch guy who can command a lot of different factions, went from 27 to 25. And finally, we had a point increase. King Oldman, a native commander, went from 20 to 30 points because he was too good for what you were getting. A general price decrease for legendaries because, again, nobody was playing them. So trying to make them a little more accessible.
I still think they are expensive if you want to think in terms of a competitive list for 150 or 200 points.
Yeah, that's the hard thing. That's at that point level, they are a big chunk of your force, but at a higher point level, if you make them even cheaper, they're like insanely powerful. So it is kind of a tricky balancing act, but hopefully this helps people enjoy them a little more.
I think it will. I think this is going to be good for these commanders. I think it's still a choice because, like you said, they are expensive, and they should be somewhat expensive. But before, it's just pretty much a no-brainer. If you're going to make a competitive list at like 150 on land, you're probably not taking a lot of these guys at 40 points. Yeah.
I've never played. I don't even own the Manuel Rivero de Pardal mini.
I have him. He's not painted, but I have him.
Yeah, he's weird, and his faction isn't that great either. It's really flavorful, but not very good, and sometimes nothing happens, so it's not very fun. But 3 command points, very inspired. That's pretty good for Spanish. And for 28 points, and he had a couple other rules, but not very good rules. Very inspiring is the big one. But for 28 points, very inspiring. It's not easy rule to find in the Spanish faction, so that's not a bad deal.
Yeah, I've played with Juan Corso. Juan Corso is interesting because I've tried making this tactic where, because he has this weird rule about surprisal at the sea where basically you can choose to be at night. So at some point you can shoot from farther away with muskets. It's a very slow strategy because you need muskets and you are out of the range and you can shoot them. But I mean, it's not competitive. It's just quirky.
Yeah, there's some weird rules in there with the night vision. I don't think you can still do it with muskets. So a boat is only visible from 12 inches or more. A ship is visible from 24 inches or more. So you could shoot a cannon off of a piragua at a ship, but they still couldn't see you. But since muskets target the unit, but they have to target a structure section, I don't think you could target them at 24 inches away. You can't shoot at a ship at 24 inches.
Oh, and then I was doing it wrong. And I played one.
Yeah, I did it wrong once too, and then I read the rules carefully, and I don't think that's quite legal.
I was going to say, he's pretty nasty for boarding. You got a bunch of boats, they can't shoot at you.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then even when you get close, it's a +4. They're hitting on 8's base before range penalty.
Yeah, yeah.
I know you were talking about the Piragua pea shooter. Would this be viable perhaps with a certain ship that has medium chasers on it now?
It's a
That's
size 2 ship, so you're visible at 24 inches in the dark. So it
Oh,
kind of
okay,
loses
okay.
that sneaky effect. But
Gotcha.
yeah, I think a force with that Barco Luengo and the Parago with Corso could be super fun.
Definitely a flavorful list.
William Kidd going down to 28 points is pretty good too. He's kind of a weird commander, but he has strict, so he's one of the best broadside commanders out there. And for 28 points, what else does he have? He has Sailing Master. That's really good. An expert broadside and strict. So yeah, he is one of the best guys for letting off a killer broadside. You can use his strict to bring your damage rolls down by 1 point, which is a big deal. It's hard to do. There's no other rules really that let you do that. And the expert broadside lets you re-roll any fails on your criticals.
If you put him on a sloop with 3 medium guns and you put him with a master gunner as well, you can potentially shave -2 off that target number.
I have sloop. That's only one deck. He has expert broadside. Give me the guns.
Yeah, you got to make use of expert broadside.
Yeah. Frigate. All right. Even a flute. How about that?
Just saying, a -2 on 3 medium guns, that hurt.
How about a -2 on 6 medium guns?
You do have to pay for the guns, but
But for 28 points.
point taken. Yeah.
Henry Morgan down to 32 from 42. That's a big deal. He's a really good commander. His faction is super fun with his activation card flip-flops. Definitely worth taking now. He's not very good at C, but the Olene is 37 points. He wasn't used very much either, but he has access to Ruthless. And I might as well bring this up now. There's one change to his faction. It's Filibusters now. They used to not have Marons as core, so you really couldn't run them at sea without just buying
Yeah.
a bunch of filibusters, which was made you choke. But now he can run a gunship or a more standard list, making him much more interesting and viable at sea, which is kind of what you want. Graf is also a great cannon guy. He has expert broadside, Sailing Master, very inspiring, Felicitas, and Swordsman. He's even better than Kid. Just all the same rules except better. But he's a little more expensive, 34 points. Piet Hein down to 36. He's not the most expensive. Yeah, I like this. People should play these cool commanders, even if they're a little expensive for a medium-sized list. They're lots of fun and fun to get that unique model on the table.
I think we may start seeing them come out a little bit more often after this. We'll see.
I sometimes use the Juan Corso model just for a regular commander.
Yeah, you can use that, or you can use them as like characters too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for the C tournament and going to 250 at Adepticon, that definitely gives you enough room to bring one of these guys. I've been playing with legendary commanders since they got reduced. It can really, I like to have a minimum model count on my C list of 30 models minimum, and you can easily hit that at 250 plus legendary commander, plus everything else you need.
It'd be fun to see some of these at a tournament. We'll see.
It'll all be down to if they're competitive enough, or if somebody just wants to bring one.
Or if somebody good enough can win in spite of not being competitive.
Ooh, is that a challenge?
Hmm.
You heard it here, folks.
Fernando, yeah.
All right, Joseph, Henry Morgan next year.
Move on to characters.
Yeah, I was just looking at King Oldman and seeing why.
He's more expensive.
Why did you say that he was way too good at 20 points?
There's only one other commander in the game that has 3 command points, and he's 20 points, and he's feeble and might die at any moment. Oldman has no negative, and he also has Buccaneer tactics, giving all his men marksman and fast reload. And fast reload on Indians is pretty good. At least that's one of the strange instances. You can have fast reload and slow reload at the same time.
So which factions can he lead?
Just
Let me look here.
Caribbean tribes is what I see.
Sounds right. Yeah, King Oldman has Great Warrior, Inspiring, Buccaneer Tactics, 3 command points, 12 range, and a Firelock Musket. So 20 points for 3 command points is remarkable. Great Warrior is a good rule. Inspiring is rare. in natives. Buccaneer Tactics is super rare and weird. And then he also has a Firelock Musket, where most or many of the native commanders in PC Online just have a standard melee weapon, which kind of is a 4 to 6 point tax because all of a sudden he's useless in any ranged attacks. So 30 points, 3 command points, and a decent command range is kind of your benchmark for a big commander that's usually about 30 points. So that combined with these other good things just made him a very, very efficient choice. So he got hammered a bit. Nerf.
It makes sense. So yeah, we can move on to characters. Everybody's favorite officer went up 2 points to 10 points. Master Gunner had a +2 to go up to 6 points, also a very popular option. Carpenter, I don't remember Carpenters being that prevalent, but they went up a point from 3 to 4. Musicians, also very, very popular, went up to 5 points. Sailing Master, again, I don't, maybe I'm having a different experience than other people, but I don't really see them all that much, but +1 to those. Still not a huge increase to them, so probably no big deal. Standard Bearer up to 3 points. Grizzled Veteran, a option that a lot of people take, is up to 6 points. Son of Neptune, the C Grizzled Veteran basically is up to 5 points, so you get a little bit of a discount for Son of Neptune. Then we've got a couple point decreases. So Spy, the Spy is a hostage or advisor. You don't really see all that often, and it went down to 5 points. And the ship's pilot went down to 4 points. So I think all of these are good changes. I think a lot of lists were getting a little too auto-include for the characters, and so bumping these characters' points up is going to be good for balance going forward.
Yeah, especially the officer, because I know people were taking the free commander and then taking the officer for 8 points and getting 2 command points out of it, because it was cheaper than the standard commander.
At 8 points, the officer was worth it almost every time if you could take him.
Yeah.
Especially if you could reduce the training level of the unit down to inexperienced and then just pay for the officer. If you had like an 8-man unit, pay for the officer, bring it back up. An inexperienced unit with a command point that they can always use is better than having a trained unit.
Yeah, that was the kind of the obvious strategy to follow. Now it's more difficult.
Right.
It's still not bad, but it's
it's still better, but you're having to pay for it a little bit more now, so which is fine.
Master Gunner is a big one. A lot of people use that in the gun list. 4 points up to 6 points.
I think people will still take Master Gunners like crazy.
I agree.
Yeah,
I found there's one class of factions that I don't use Master Gunner for, and that's the Navy factions, where your commander can give out that command point to all his units at once. It seems like you'd want a Master Gunner, and sometimes they still pay for him, but when you do that, and you can't use his command point, so all you're getting is his other stuff, which is still pretty good. But yeah, we've always said he was too good for what you get. That bonus to hit, the command point, and the expert artillery crew. That's a lot of goodness for only 4 points.
Yeah, because I mean, I would use him in swivel lists a lot of times, and you don't like. I just dropped the bonus to hit because you don't get that with swivels. But I was still like, this is still really good.
I mean, I didn't use it in my own list with swivel guns, but because I want to shoot once and then ward. But if I wanted kind of to keep shooting with the swivels, I would.
When I was doing swivel C lists, I would basically just troll around and try to shoot as much as possible with muskets and swivels and just clear the deck, and board as a kind of a last option to just finish the game out if I needed to.
I guess maybe I'm too aggressive. I don't know.
Well, I think you've won more tournaments than anyone else here, Fernando, so you're good.
Yeah. I've just not done a lot of boarding lists either, so that's a list archetype that I need to explore more. So
I like boarding.
I used the Master Gunner in my at Adepticon. It didn't work but now that I had the cannons, it was kind of you need it. especially with Spanish because they don't have spare artillery.
That's big with some factions. Getting that expert artillery is very nice.
I was reading up about, or Liam sent me a section of a book about Spanish master gunners, and they didn't really. They had to import them. They had to hire German and Italian master gunners because it turns out you need to be really educated. You need to know all this math and geometry and science or chemistry for your gunpowder and all this stuff. It was quite the involved position. And the Spanish didn't have any of that because they're all too busy being lazy with their free silver and stuff. But,
That's interesting.
like 80% of master gunners were not Spanish.
I read about gunners in the medieval era, but I didn't know that it persisted through time. Well, it makes sense. You need to. I mean, Napoleon was an artilleryman.
Yeah, so they had whole artillery academies open up later because takes a lot to learn how to fire the big guns accurately.
What was the rationale behind the carpenter change, if there was one, or was it just like point?
Repairs are quite good. I saw Mike's first draft, and he had basically doubled costs and everything. So this is moderated from his original idea. But I think overall he wanted characters to be a little bit more expensive and take a little more consideration to add to your list. Carpenter is pretty good because he has a bonus to repair and a command point to repair. And since command repair is a dedicated action, having that command point, which can almost count as dedicated, basically gives you another whole unit.
Unit to repair, yeah.
So it's a big bonus if you like repairing. I mean, if somebody had a carpenter, they might have stopped their firepot explosions. But
yeah, now more than ever, the carpenters are needed.
Yeah, there was no carpenter alive that could keep up with that.
I think the musician boost from 2 points to 5 points is going to make some people raise their eyebrows. But people are playing a lot of musicians, and that terror it's terror and inspiring. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, both of those. Mike specifically didn't want inspiring to be so common. It should be kind of a hard thing to get. You got to at least look for it because it's a big deal. It's a big rule. It's kind of the rule you look for if you just need a generic good rule for your force. So being able to add it for 2 points. I mean, it is taxed by the model you have to pay for too, which has no ranged weapon because he's blowing his horn.
Yeah, but inspiring is worth it.
It's worth it. But I mean, I used to always have a musician before Raise the Black, but now I don't because I can choose inspiring in my standard Spanish commander.
Oh yeah.
Or we get inspiring for 3 points because of our holy man.
Okay. Yeah. But for example, I've never found, and this is something that we can discuss, but I've never found terror that useful, even with ruthless and the Spanish, mostly because it triggers at the beginning of the game. So in the first turn, mostly what people do is just move, and you have an extra action. And what you do with that extra action, you rally.
On C games, it can be a nothing, but I think it's partly psychological. Having to roll for all your fatigue on turn one is like you feel like you're
it demoralizes you.
Picked on. Yeah.
But the only thing I've really seen Pete with our group, he ran natives laying in wait, and he brought a musician, so terror went off while he was laying in wait, and then he was right on top of you.
I think terror is pretty good, but sometimes it's a nothing.
Yeah, you got to really kind of set up or lean into it. Otherwise, just like, lol, you're scared. All right, rally it off.
Yeah, I think it's just the combination of terror and inspiring as well that what made people be like, oh yeah, why wouldn't I take this?
You can also use that to cancel out somebody else's terror.
Right.
I think this is an easy choice. I mean, it's a good change, partly because we have the option for the drummer boy from Raise the Black that can be added to the kind of army factions and militia factions, where the musician, a little pricier, you have to pay for the core model as well, but it can go on any faction. So giving inspiring to any faction was just too easy.
Yeah.
And I think it's really meant to go hand in hand with the standard bearer, because the standard bearer also gives you that extra 1 command point to use as a rally. So you're getting, if you pay all those points, you're getting a rally and inspiring. And I think that for the points you have to pay now, I think that is a fair price.
Yeah, if you're using 4-point models trained to militia, now that combination costs 8 plus 8, 16 points for 2 models for a command point, inspiring, terror. You got to think about that. It's not an automatic choice. That's good. That's what we want. No automatic choices. Thoughtful choices.
Exactly.
Still good, but you want to explore other options sometimes. So we went through Sailing Master. I don't exactly remember what Sailing Master does.
Gives you a command
Expert
point.
sailors, and then you get that free, maybe move faster than your top speed.
Okay.
Or a free extra inch. You can do a free sailing test to see if you can get an extra burst of speed or slow down. It just lets you modify your speed by 1 inch. It's really fun. I like it. I like play him a lot. Grizzled Veteran is the big one.
Yeah, he doubled.
3 points to 6 points.
Which is fair. Tough and battle hardened and a command point for rallying is a really good combination.
He was one of those, like the Master Gunner and the Musician, that was just in every list.
Yeah.
If you had the points for it, put him in.
So I remember reading in your blog that before I even played Blood and Plunder, there was this issue that when there was no character restrictions, everybody kind of used a lot of grizzled veterans.
Yeah, I played with like 4 units of archers in the native list with grizzled veterans on them all. Why not? It's definitely worth it.
We did
When
that
you
with
can have
Master
more
Gunners.
Yeah, so did I. It was like, let's have everybody have a Master Gunner.
Was there a time that there was not a unit restriction on it?
Yeah, there was.
Oh wow. I didn't know that. That must have been before I got into the game.
1 character per named character per force. You can't have.
Yeah, they jumped on that real quick.
I imagine.
But a Neptune, like you said, is just the same, except for you have to put him on a sailor's unit.
But he also doesn't have battle hardened. They only have expert sailors and tough, which is still good. Tough is good.
Good to be tough.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if after all these point increases on these guys, if we'll see more people use the characters from Raise the Black, which now feel a little undercosted. And I wonder if the Raise the Black characters will get nerfed a little bit at some point as well.
Yeah, they probably will.
Yeah, like the Hidalgo in the Spanish got better, I think.
Hidalgo and Mission Priest in Spanish lists are kind of auto includes. They are thematic for the Spanish lists as well.
I like having those nation-specific characters that only you get. It's fun.
Okay, we've got the Spy left.
I don't know what the spider does.
The Spy actually deserves a little attention, especially for those of you who have been hit by lay and wait. The Spy can cancel that.
Yeah, roll a d10 before the start of a battle. On a roll of a 6+, the enemy force may not use the lay and wait scenario rule. Once per game, this force's controlling player may discard all the activation cards in their hand or replace them with the same number without spending a fortune point. So you get that for free. This can be done in addition to any other ability that already allows the force to do this. So
That's interesting.
English and French Buccaneers.
yeah, if you're fishing for certain cards, that's pretty good.
Yeah, privateers too. Most of the privateer factions can also do that.
Yeah, no, I don't see people play this. I played it once, I think.
If you know you're going to be playing a list that has it, I think it's a no-brainer. But even at 5 points, like you're mostly going to get the free discard, which is cool. But I think it's a little situational.
Yeah, I don't know.
The good thing.
Yeah, the lane weight negation rule, it's very situational because I used to play a lot of the Spanish guys that had lane weight, but now I don't, and I don't think I've played against anyone that used that.
Indians, a competitive Native American
Oh
player,
yeah,
can hit you real hard with lay and wait.
yeah,
Nigel
that's true.
really likes that, and you can mess somebody up on turn 1 or 2 if you have, especially for scenarios that like a control the field, where you can just camp on the objective from turn 1. Canceling that is a big deal.
He's the only native competitive player, though, so that's the
What
the
about
thing
me?
with that. Oh, do you consider yourself one too?
I'm insulted.
Natives, technically speaking, have kind of the best factions. It's just that not many people play it.
Yeah, I mean, I will fully admit that they should be a competitive nation, but people just don't really play them all that much for some
Especially if you've never played against them, they can really throw you off your game. It usually takes one native player in a player group to make everybody go, "Oh, I have to reevaluate what I bring."
Yeah.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun, but it's a pirate game and people come for the pirates, so sometimes it's a hard sell.
True. My issue with natives, and I tried using natives, is that unlike what you think, I'm not really good at the game, and I forget a lot of the rules. And the natives have a lot of rules, so I just forget. I mean, sometimes I forget that some of my units have tough or something like that.
Yeah.
I forget ruthless constantly.
Yeah.
I'll just be like,
lot of rules
okay,
for
what's my number? All right, there you go. Oh, you had fatigue. Crap.
Yeah, I've seen people make flow charts of all the things they need to remember as they play natives. When I charge, here are the things I need to remember. If I'm going to shoot, here are the things I need to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are kind of complex.
I think some people like that though. So
Yeah, I do.
but yeah, ship's pilot.
Went from 7 to 4 points.
Yeah, and that is the guy that helps you roll over shoals better.
Should be an auto include for you, Joseph.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it gives extra dice. Kind of like shallow draft. You get 2 dice, and you get to choose which one you really use. He also, little known rule, is the only way to get, or one of the only ways to get sailors on a native unit. He gives your unit sailors.
Oh, that's true. It's available to
Oh,
any.
that is
Yeah, that's
true.
true. Interesting.
So your canoes can get shallow draft. Yay.
Well, there's a couple of native factions that can take size 2 ship.
One of those factions can also get sailors on their units. Pretty fun. 4 points is pretty much as cheap as a hostage/advisor can go. They have other benefits. They can break a tie at the end of a game. So, yeah, nobody was using this guy at all. He's a fun little model with a pot belly and the pipe.
Oh, that's the model.
It deserves it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have it. I love it. I just haven't used for that.
I've used a ship's pilot one time, and that was at the St. Augustine outdoor game I played because it was just a part of the scenario. So I think that's what these get relegated to a lot of times is if it's in a scenario specific thing, you have a spy for this scenario because the historical account of this, they did have a spy, so you're going to use this character. So
I think it's healthy to bring them into a competitive place where they can actually be used to advantage rather than just be relegated to the sidelines.
Right, yeah. And then we've got one more faction rule change to tidy up on. This one was a no-brainer because they changed this in the British militia stuff in the Raise the Black book, and they went back and changed it in the No Peace Beyond the Line, where you can reroll one of your fatigue dice per turn, correct?
The whole fatigue test.
Oh, okay. It's the whole test.
Without spending a fortune. Yeah, the English Caribbean militia and the North American English militia had this ability where they can reroll all their failed fatigues on turn 1. But kind of like Terror, often you don't even get shot on turn 1. So it was kind of a faction with no special rule. So yeah, that it got switched in Fire on the Frontier. That English faction changed it to 1. They could reroll all the dice on 1 fatigue test once per turn. Kind of like the French militia faction has a once per turn free move. This is kind of pushed to kind of mirror that without spending a fortune. I think it's a really fun rule. I like playing it, and it's quite good.
Yeah, and it's exactly like using a fortune. You have to pick up all the dice and reroll them.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, do we have any more questions, comments, concerns about any of this?
Coolest thing about all this is No Peace Beyond the Line is available again. It's been out of print for like 2 years, so I will buy it.
Yeah.
Do the cards are also available?
I think they did reprint the cards, didn't they?
Yep, they reprinted the card set. They have all these costs reflected, except I think King Old Man, somehow they missed changing him. He's still at 20 points on the card for some annoying reason. They also took out all the faction cards and all the, I don't know if you guys got the original set, but it had little upgrade cards like
Yeah.
fire pots or upgrade from matchlock to heavy matchlock. Those are all taken out. So the pack has slimmed down from 192 to about 114 cards, but it's also cheaper, which is nice. But yeah, grab those cards. Cards go out of print. Seems like too fast. So if you want them, get them now. They're really handy. I like them. Really good for demos.
That's what I wind up using mine most for, is demos.
I mean, I use them for games in general.
I like to have them lined up so I can
Yeah.
see the stats really easy. I like that better than the printout from the Force Builder, but
Yeah,
the
totally.
cost a little more.
So do you think that this will change do you think this will affect the game?
I think it definitely will.
Yeah.
We started with probably the biggest change, which was the sailor options and then the cavalry. I think those two things will probably change the meta in the biggest ways. And then probably after that, the character prices will probably change. If I had to say like my top 3 things that would change the meta in the game.
Yeah, I agree. I think we'll see a few less characters, which I think is a good thing. People have been pretty much maxing out how many characters they can bring in a Force tournament. Analysis indicated that most people were bringing all the characters they could. That means they're providing plenty of value for what you're paying for them, but I don't think that's necessarily a healthy thing to see everybody maxing out characters. It makes the game more complicated for one thing. And I think things like the Grizzled Veteran were kind of nullifying fatigue as a mechanism in the whole game, or making certain strategies not possible, just making it too easy to keep your force moving. So I think that Grizzled Veteran and the Master Gunner are going to be the biggest thing on the character front to modify how people build.
So maybe this is an unfounded concern of mine, but especially with the sailors that now have access to lances and brace of pistols, do you think that it will take flavor away from the units that used to have only lances or brace of pistols? That instead of choosing, I mean, for the Spaniards, instead of choosing Vizcaínos, yes, I think Vizcaínos, you now use the regular marineros and you give them brace of pistols.
Yeah, I've thought of that. I'm not sure, because they're two very similar units now, especially since you can swap down to trained on the Vizcayanos.
And they tend to have better stats too across all the elite sailors.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm a little concerned about that, honestly. I don't like the whole brace of pistols available to everybody. I think that worries me a little bit, partly because I have a grudge against brace of pistols. But if you look at the Vizcaínos versus the Marineros, Vizcaínos has a better fight save and a better shoot save. And if you have a unit of 8 Marineros costing you 4.5 points versus 8 Vizcaínos costing you 5 points for trained, plus you have more options as far as blunderbusses. You can get blunderbusses for free, although you have to exchange them. You can add more grenades if you want. You can get bayonets. So you're paying half point more, maybe a little less, depending on how big your unit is, but you're getting 2 better stats and more flexibility in how you arm them. So yes, I think it flattens things out a tiny bit, but there's still meaningful decisions to make, and it makes these old units interesting again. So I think it's a bit of a mixed bag.
I think it helps the 17th century lists out. I think that giving the sailors the brace of pistols will help them fight especially fight the 3-point pirates with brace of pistols. I think that kind of levels that playing field a little bit.
Yeah, we've talked a little bit about pirates and the brace of pistol spam with boarding lists on that. Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what shakes out from it.
Do you want to head over to announcements?
Yeah. So Gen Con is the next thing on my radar. It's on August 1st through the 4th. I think as of right now, we're still in the planning phase with that. It's going to be probably an event game and some demos on a night. Gen Con's really my con that I get to go and try stuff. It's not a 100% plunder thing for me. And we have a couple things planned, so not nearly as much as Adepticon, but it'll be fun. If you're in the area, come on and see us. We've also got Summer of Plunder coming up. A lot of planning is going on with that. We've got new I don't know if Joseph wants to divulge any information about the new
Firelock is all about divulging information, right?
Yeah, sure.
We're making an organized play kit to send to stores this year, and the Summer Plunders kind of coming under the official Firelock umbrella, which still means Blood and Pigment's doing most of the work, turns out, but it is an official company campaign. And part of that is this organized play kit's going to have a scenario packet, kind of 3 scenarios, and related to those 3 scenarios are going to be 3 exclusive miniatures that kind of fit in with the scenario. Get a Master Gunner miniature, guy kind of lighting a cannon, looks pretty cool. Or we have a surgeon miniature, guy with a bone saw looking eager to chop you up. That's fun. And a kind of objective marker token that has like a Spanish money silver chest on that sand with a shovel next to it. A nod to the 1715 salvage treasure wreck salvage project there. Very useful to have a objective marker for a lot of different scenarios. So some exclusive minis. I don't know how exclusive they'll be, if they'll market them afterwards, probably. But if you want first crack at them, talk to your game store about ordering a organized play kit. It's also going to include some fancy fortune coins, which is my obsession. So I got some nice restrikes of Spanish silver and gold to put in there, and maybe some activation or reload tokens too. So nice little tidy, and a poster put up in your store. Nice little kit. I think you're gonna make it serve 4 to 6 players, I think. So it'll have a miniature for all the players in there for each of those scenarios. So yeah, we're looking forward to seeing that come together. All the sculpting got done last week, and I got to throw some input in there, and should be really awesome.
Cool. Did you have an event coming up in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, I'm going to a West Coast. I'm in Oregon. West Coast is not the greatest place for historical wargaming. There is this one convention in Tacoma, Washington, weekend of May 24th to 26th, called Infilad. It looks like a pretty small affair. It's just at a La Quinta hotel. But I'm going up there one day, the 25th, which is my birthday. So if you come, you bring a present, please. Running some, or I think we're going to do the Charles Vane scenario in the afternoon. We're going to do some learn to plays. There's quite a few people in Washington State, Seattle, and outlying places that play or have played or bought in, but haven't really kept up very well. So looking forward to getting together with them. Some people really eager. Some people I've met at Adepticon that live in Washington that are going to be there as well. We're going to bring up 4 to 6 players from my Oregon City group. Should have at least 10 players there. So if you're on the West Coast, want to get some Blood and Plunder in, and want to congratulate me on turning 38, you can come on the 25th, Saturday of May. We have a website, but it looks like it was from the 1990s, so can't really vouch for that. But there are 2 events that we have registered for. I think one's in that 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and one's like 6 or 7 in the evening. There'll be some Blood and Plunder happening on the West Coast.
For more Blood and Plunder content, you can go over to bloodandpigment.com to check out all the material we have over there. We have articles on ships, nations, factions, terrain, painting guides, battle reports, anything you can think of, really. So go check it out.
And you can check out our YouTube channel for more Blood and Plunder content. It's a little slow moving right now. We've been publishing our podcasts up there, so thanks for watching there. But we have a whole Adepticon review with pictures. We're trying to get that video together, but my computer has been driving me nuts as far as editing video, so it's been slow there, but we'll get some up there soon. And if you like our content and like Blood and Plunder and want to throw us a little support, you can check us out at Patreon. Thank you, Randy, for pledging $10 a month recently. A guy at my local area who just got to meet. Appreciate that. Helps a lot. Costs quite a bit to keep this on the going, turns out. So we appreciate your help.
And as always, keep it nice, Vinny, to win at your back, your hard.